Welcome to The Scariest Scene, where I dig through horror movies to find and rank the most terrifying moments. Today we're looking at Backrooms, a hybrid found footage movie based off an old 4chan post. Backrooms is directed by Kane Parsons and is an anomaly in modern filmmaking. Kane Parsons started on YouTube creating the original Backrooms video in January of 2022 at only 16 years old. Apart from the beginning of his original Backrooms video, which was filmed with Parsons and a few of his friends, it was all made in the 3D animating software Blender, which is a massive feat considering how realistic it looks. A key thing he did to make it look so authentic was run the footage through a VCR player, record it onto tape, and then re-digitalize it, which then became a staple process for all of his following Backrooms work. He then continued to make copious amounts of Backrooms content over the years until A24 decided to make him not only the youngest major studio director ever, but also the youngest director to have a film hit #1 at the box office at just 20, now 21. Similar to Obsession, I love that we're getting new directors with new and fresh ideas, and obviously it's working. So, how does the switch from found footage to major motion picture look when we enter the Backrooms? Let's get to the scenes and find out. Backrooms begins with async. I thought we were watching Backrooms. If you're unaware of the YouTube lore, async, short for asynchronous, not an acronym, are a slightly shady company which started out producing MRIs, or at least that's what they claim. Really, the production of MRIs was more to cover up for their real task, discovering, exploring, and trying to learn what the Backrooms are. So anyway, that async title card was at the start of some found footage. This unnamed man is running around the Backrooms and seems to be a little lost. He eventually finds a little control station and covers up the entrance, which means maybe he was being chased by something? Probably not though, right? He starts trying to reach someone, anyone, on the outside, begging to be helped and saved. The only response he gets is a little bird call.
Fuck!
Well, with no one to save him and nowhere else to go, he decides to venture on. He passes some pirate ship wheels and some furniture that's seriously a bargain, no credit needed. Unfortunately, something comes lurking around the corner, so he starts booking it down the hallway. He makes it outside, not really, but to this very surreal looking room with no exit besides the one that he came through. We jump to the real world now, and I think I recognize something about this place. This is Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire, a failing furniture store ran by a not very well adjusted and failed architect Clark, but don't tell him I said he's not an architect, he takes that very seriously. Clark is trying to better himself by taking therapy sessions with Mary. We learn Clark has been pushed out of his wife's life due to alcoholism, anger issues, and overall being a pretty big asshole.
I hurt people. I don't want to, it's just the way I'm wired, so...
They roleplay the night Clark was kicked out of his own house, and to us the audience it seems like Clark could just be misunderstood, broken, but fixable, and maybe meant for the high seas.
No way.
Okay, well, never mind, maybe he is a lost cause. Bobby and Kat are Clark's part-time employees who definitely catch the vibe that something's a little off with this guy, but hey, minimum wage is minimum wage, what are you gonna do? Later on, we learn the building has some weird electrical problems, so Clark hires an electrician to take a look-see. They go down to the breaker box and everything looks relatively normal, except the new random red switches that aren't actually connected to anything.
It's just there, like some schmo just stuck it in there.
Well, if it's broke, guess we can't fix it, so whatever. It's nighttime now, and Clark is sleeping where he works and getting lit when the power to his TV goes out. Oh no. Then the whole building's power turns on before flickering and going out again. Clark takes this as a sign to go on a little late night drive to stalk his old house and reminisce on his previous relationships. A lot of theories claim that Clark's wife may have gotten a restraining order against him, which doesn't seem very unlikely. It's implied that he may have gotten physical, but at the very least was verbally abusive, which is definitely grounds for a restraining order. So after that little late night drive, it looks like it fixed the TV issue, so Clark is back on his chud shit, drinking and watching. It's a weird show you got on, dude. Anyway, Clark notices that the lights in the basement are acting haywire, so he goes and flips every single little switch to no avail. But when he switches the little schmo switch, boom, darkness. But when flipped back, the lights stay off. Clark is overall mainly confused and leaves to go back upstairs when he catches a glimpse of light coming from the wall. holy shit dude, imagine how much money you could make from this. That might sound like I'm joking, but as the story progresses, that's definitely a thought in his head. Clark is very unsettled by this discovery, but, you know, curiosity killed the Clark, so he decides to explore what he assumes has just been a hidden extension of his building. It's cool to see the backrooms from a non-camcorder viewpoint finally. The eeriness of it all and the camera angles you're able to achieve in this otherworldly liminal space is just awesome to see. Clark continues exploring until he comes across another person. Just kidding, it's actually a cardboard cutout blaring welcome messages in other languages. Clark enters the room with the power cables connecting to the cutout, and you may recognize it's actually the same room that displayed on his TV before he entered the backrooms himself. Clark then finds a little hole in the wall, and obviously his first thought is to crawl on down through it. He comes out in another eerily familiar place. It's a semi-copy of when Clark and his employees were filming his commercial, with their shoes stuck in the ground and a larger version of the chair that broke on him. He starts hearing some noises from the hole he crawled through and slowly goes to investigate. Clark, you seem a little too unfazed by all this. This would freak me the fuck out. The only other exit to this room is this little doorway that leads him right out back near the entrance that he came through. More startled than before, he makes his way back, but... oh nice, he got out. Dude, what? Don't worry, he just wanted a little keepsake to remember his times in the backrooms, obviously. It's the next day and Clark comes into his therapy session, ecstatic, messy, and manic. Mary picks up on this and gets increasingly worried, but not to the point of sending Clark to the psych ward or anything. He goes on to poorly explain the backrooms to her, saying it's just another room he never knew about, showing her a map he's made, then honestly does come up with a pretty good analogy.
Describing a dog to someone who's never seen one before and then asking them to draw it. They might get some things right, but there's no way they'd get everything right. The devil's in the details. Why are you looking at me like that?
You gotta admit, he does sound insane. She goes on to dismiss everything he's saying, which pisses Clark off, so he gets up to leave, claiming he'll bring back proof.
And you're gonna owe me a serious fucking apology.
Clark goes straight to his employee's house and recruits them to bring the camera to work just for a few hours for research. Sure. Well, now here we are, found footage number 2 of the movie. No, not that one. We see Clark has brought in numerous things from the backrooms and scattered them all around his basement. We also see he's done a lot more mapping, planning to bring these guys along to an area that he hasn't reached yet. Obviously, his employees don't know that, though.
A rope? What's the rope for?
Supplies.
Oh, great. He's gonna tie us up.
No, okay.
Her face here really shows just how crazy Clark seems. If I walked down into all of this, there's no way I would stay, let alone follow him into the backrooms. Her boyfriend Bobby is less freaked out by everything going on, though.
Fuck, Clark!
What the fuck?
They all end up walking through, and Kat is the only sane one left in the group, not just dismissing how insane this all is, but the demon that is FOMO causes her to stick along for the ride. They continue exploring the complex, and we get some nice callbacks to the original Backrooms video. They eventually get to where Clark needed his research done, and decides that Bobby is going to be the sacrificial lamb. Clark ties a rope around Bobby's waist, and he starts his descent down this hole-in-the-wall ramp that goes down into, well, we don't know yet, but Bobby tumbles down and reaches the floor to find what looks to be something akin to a hoarder house. Piles of old clothes tossed around, dirt smeared on the floor and walls with a really bad stench. Bobby looks around a bit more and finds his end apartheid shirt that he was wearing a few days ago sitting on top of one of the files, which is weird. He reaches the end of the rope slack right before he can peek around a corner when he starts to see slight movement and the lights flicker. He runs backwards and yells to be pulled up, and it's a really tense scene where you can feel the fear that Bobby is experiencing. He reaches the top and claims that there's someone down there. Clark and him struggle to get the rope untied when he starts being pulled back down. The rope's tension reaches its peak again, and then the bed they had tied it to gets pulled, sending Kat and Clark down the slide of death. Kat runs to try and open the sideways door to no avail, then runs off, leaving Clark all alone. We hear her screaming bloody murder while Clark realizes just how fucked he is. The door Bobby was pulled through starts to open again, so Clark books it through this random hole in the wall. The camera glitches a little until Clark comes out on the other side to a more homely area of the backrooms. He continues on and finds the other side of the laundry lair. We also see down in this area there's tons of these chutes down just like the one Clark fell through, with no foreseeable way back up. up. Only they had brought some ladders, right? Clark is now completely lost, something he's never really experienced in the backrooms, usually having control. He runs through more rooms, eventually making it back to your standard yellow office backrooms until... hell nah.
Stay back! Get away from me!
After Clark's first still life encounter, he runs to the pool rooms, or at least a warped version of them. He takes a little dip and then continues on, reaching a final room with no obvious exit. He hears some clinking beyond the wall, and then Kat starts yelling Clark's name.
But it's a wall! How can you see me?
I'm on the other side of the glass!
This part is so trippy. Kat is on the other side of this wall, and for her it's completely see-through, but for Clark it's this bathroom-tiled opaque mess. Clark keeps looking for a way out or a way to let Kat in when the camcorder he left starts being picked up. Kat yells at Clark to turn around, and then the footage just stops. We cut to Mary as a kid. She gets up to look through the very normal newspaper-covered windows and plays a little Five Nights at Mary's, making sure Mom isn't gonna catch her peeking.
Mary!
This plot isn't expanded on very much, but it's clear Mary's mother was a very paranoid woman, and it seems to lay very heavily on Mary's mind. God, these jump scares are crazy. It's been a few days now, and Mary is getting a little bit worried about how she left things with Clark. So she goes to Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire for a little wellness check. The doors were left unlocked, so she just waltzes right in. The schmo lights start going haywire again in the basement, so Mary takes a note from Scooby-Doo and investigates. She sees Clark's mapping on the whiteboard and remembers the sheet of paper he had shown her in therapy. She walks up to the wall and... Mary takes that as a sign and walks right on in. The furniture that used to reside there is gone now, implicating to us that Clark is still around there, somewhere, somehow. Although anxious, Mary is a trooper and just keeps on going deeper and deeper before eventually reaching a little art installation. Not sure what the intentions were, but it's still an interesting piece. And it seems like our artist is gonna make an appearance too. Sorry, yeah, he's just a little shy. Mary and Clark start to hear some stomping. The lights start to flicker, but it slows and lessens. Clark claims it was only him and to be calm, but then just starts choking her out, saying he's sorry and that it's for her own good. Dude, way to be evil, I guess, but come on. We get a really cool scene of Mary's childhood home slowly being transformed by the backrooms until we reach where Mary resides now. The Clark rooms. Clark realizes that he missed his therapy session being down in the backrooms and is kind enough to tie Mary to her chair so they can pick up where they left off. He goes on to explain how he's lonely and everything's a mess.
But also beautiful. In a way. No?
He loves it here. Mary asks who these people are, and Clark goes on to explain that the backrooms remember these people just slightly wrong. He's pretty sure that's how you get everything in the backrooms, just misremembered by time. Good thing still lives can't think or feel anything, and better yet,
You can eat them.
I wonder if it tastes like memories. Dead cat, no! Mary starts freaking out due to the dead cat, but Clark calms her down using her own therapy techniques. But before they start the role-playing, Clark decides Mary needs to get into character. So he decides to scalp the still life and put its hair on Mary's head. Hell no! Now that she's in character, they go back to the night he was kicked out of his house again.
I am a fucking architect.
I told you, he takes being an architect very seriously. Anyway, as you can see, Clark gets way too into it, and Mary breaks character and gives Clark some much needed honesty.
You want to know the real reason your wife left you? It wasn't the drinking, or the stumbling home at all hours, or the rage. It was the whining.
And surprisingly, Clark actually takes this to heart. Finally having someone be honest with him broke down his barriers. Mary says, you don't have to change, you can stay here, but don't drag me along with you. Clark gets up and begins to untie her, much faster than with his employee Bobby. The still lives start freaking out as we start to hear stomping come towards the room. Mary starts untying her other arm as Pirate Clark enters. Oh yeah. Regular Clark walks up to the pirate and attempts at calming him down.
You don't have to worry. She says we don't need to change.
Pirate Clark realizes exactly what Clark needs right now. It's just a big ol' hug, so he picks him up and leans in. Oh shit, Mary, you gotta go. She slips past Pirate Clark and enters into Backrooms suburbia. Mary books it with Pirate Clark dragging Clark's body behind him. Oh god. Mary enters into one of these houses and runs around passing some very familiar green lights coming from a room. It's theorized that these are the same lights we saw in Pitfalls and Found Footage 2 and 3 from the YouTube series. A common leading theory, and what I believe, is that these lights occur when the backrooms are expanding. It's interesting to think about what would have happened had Mary gone that way. She didn't though, and continues on up some stairs, past some wind chimes, then over the couch seat where she hurts her ankle real bad. Pirate Clark is still right behind her, so she has no other choice than to stomp on along down this skinny ass hallway. She starts sidestepping towards this floating stairway above this bottomless pit, and not long after, Pirate Clark begins breaking down the door to catch her. She starts crawling up the stairs and finds this little door on the ceiling. Mary lifts herself up and enters back into Clark's Ottoman Empire. She doesn't bother closing up the hatch to the backrooms and runs to go upstairs and leave. Once out of the basement, she realizes that she didn't really leave anywhere. She's still in the backrooms. She runs up to the front doors hoping they'll lead somewhere, but the outside is completely walled off. And it looks like Pirate Clark finally made it, and without any obvious exit, it looks like this is the end of Mary. Pirate Clark gets dangerously close to Mary when she whacks his peg leg, breaking it. She bumps into a trap laid by Async and gas begins spraying everywhere. She sees a hidden doorway but slows down due to the gas. She slams Pirate Clark in the head over and over again and then runs through the tiniest gap in the wall ever. Pirate Clark and her have a heartfelt goodbye and she continues on, eventually reaching the outside. Not really. She gets sprayed with that gas again and gets lifted out of the backrooms into this government security place, aka Async. She's surrounded by doctors and people in hazmat suits who take her to get some scans done before she's walked to a final room for some questioning. On her walk, we see Pirate Clark wrapped up and some MRI scans on a few monitors. Once she's seated in the room, Mark Duplass comes in and asks her a few questions about her experience. We learn more about Async and how they were monitoring Clark and his relationship with the still lives in the backrooms. Mary isn't interested though and doesn't really want to answer any questions and is more worried about her well-being. What's gonna happen to her? Are they really gonna let her go? She gets a non-answer, which to her is good enough as saying you're not leaving. There's a lot of theories on whether she does get let out, whether this is the original Mary or a more recent, well-remembered clone. It's left ambiguous, which I can appreciate. We get some stills of the backrooms remembering Mary's childhood, Clark's life, and then eventually ending with a misremembered Mary herself. So, with so many memorable moments and terrifying scenes, it begs the question, what is Backrooms' scariest scene? For Backrooms' scariest scene, I have to go with the rope scene. It goes on unbroken for about 5 minutes of pure terror. The rooms Clark encounters down in this area are so much more broken looking than your standard backrooms area we saw at the start of the movie. All the chutes down to the lair is horrifying to think about, and everything beginning with Bobby being killed and then dragged through that sideways door just sets the tone that shit is gonna go down. I think what makes this scene so impactful and scary is although we know Clark and Kat are being chased by something, we have still yet to see what is actually chasing them, leaving your mind to create whatever would be scariest for you to encounter in the backrooms, even if Pirate Clark is pretty terrifying. The lack of cuts and seeing from Clark's point of view also adds to the fear of the scene and really makes you feel like you're down there with them. 10 out of 10 horror scene. And if I were to pick the tamest scene from Backrooms, that's trying to be scary, I would have to pick the Great Supper, aka Clark's dinner scene. While very interesting and definitely disturbing at times, it lacks the fear Backrooms usually brings, being less focused on scaring us through the backrooms and instead scaring us through the characters, which just wasn't as scary. Backrooms came out a little over a month and a half ago and is probably my favorite movie to have come out this year. If you want, give me some suggestions on what to look at next, but until then, I've been Verybigdumb.